Hi everyone, and warm welcome to our session. And it's glad to see that the hall is completely full, and I'm sorry for the guys that actually have to stand right now. But it really kind of me and also Adam that we can actually welcome you on this session. We are going to discuss how to build modern apps on AWS, what services we can use, and then also we want to actually touch a little bit on the well-architected and maybe kind of even to put it together. How it works. My name is Nazar, and at Stormit, I have a commercial role, so I'm mainly taking care of the customers. And Adam, he's our AWS solution architect, and he's actually responsible for designing the architecture for our customers. And today, while discussing actually different services, it doesn't make sense to name services without actually providing some background. Why the customer decided to use that? What was the benefit for the customer? What was kind of the initial need that they wanted? And we want to describe this on the case study that we have for one of our Czech customer that we are working for over 2 years already. Then we will actually also describe a little bit deep why we believe that those services are the best to use. And we will describe what were the results in the end after we designed and deployed the architecture on AWS. A little bit about us. So we as a Stormit, we are advanced tier partner. We are primarily based in Czech Republic, but we have actually customers all around the globe, including North America, South America, and even North Africa. And we are really kind of working on helping customers to simplify the cloud journey. And very often it's actually about the education. When we want to mention kind of the Schlieger. So the Schlieger as a company is a relatively young company. So they were established in 2010, and they are focusing on installing the solar panels and the heat pumps on the roofs, mainly on the residential areas. And just let me take my notes because there's some interesting numbers. So they are a leader in Czech Republic, but they are providing their services and installing the heat pumps and solar panels in Germany, in Austria, and Slovakia as well. So they are active in all neighboring markets. And just in the year 2023, they deliver more than 8,000 installations in 1 year. And this is kind of very important because they actually realized that they are going to have significant growth, and this is why they wanted to digitalize the company, because before that it was really everything was done manually, and there was very little automation, very little digitalization. And when we actually started talking to them, they knew that they need to change something, but they were not sure what and how to do it. So they were not actually clear about if they want to go to the cloud, what cloud vendor to use, or if they should actually go for some co-location. So we actually helped them to build a strategy from the very beginning. And we actually listen to the feedback and to the needs that they need, and we try to design the architecture around that. And there were kind of some preferences that Adam will actually mention. So they definitely wanted to use the ETS, so it's a kind of part of the stack. They want to make sure it's highly available. And they wanted to make sure that in case there is a failure, that they are able to go back online as soon as possible, because they're using this not only for the internal purposes, but also for the customer-facing purposes. So that's it actually from my side, like an introduction. And now for the technical part, like the more interesting part, I believe for the majority of you, Adam will actually take over and he will describe the stack.
So thank you, Nazar. You actually talked a little bit about something what I want to talk about. About the technical requirements from Schlieger side. They basically wanted what everyone wants, but let's put it together, connect it to their infrastructure. They wanted highly available application, so we tried to do it. They wanted seamless deployments because from what I have seen from working with them, they want to deploy almost every day, new version, new stuff. And they definitely wanted cost-efficient cloud infrastructure, so that's what we tried to do for them. And strong security measures integrated with AWS, so this was about AWS accounts because they have multiple accounts, but also the accessibility of their application from outside, so nothing should be public and other stuff around. And what was the main part was they wanted containers and Kubernetes, so we will talk about that a little bit later. This is a simplified infrastructure in AWS right now. As we talk, they use it, and you probably, if you go to the website, you will probably read some of this stuff, and you will see them on their side. So for monitoring part, they're using some open source things like Prometheus and Grafana, but they use also some other tools connected to EKS like Velero that I will be talking about a little bit later for backups, and external secrets operator for the credentials. And as you can see, we also have DynamoDB here, RDS, S3 bucket, and a lot of stuff. What you see here is multi-environment. This is not mentioned here, but basically it's running 3 times in AWS, and they are using it for development and also some other stuff. And they also have some static part because they have static website that they use internally and also publicly accessible, so we use CloudFront there. I will be talking about it a little bit later. And we also have here an event store DB, which was mainly their decision to run an event-driven application, so we were able to do it. It's not too visible here, but I think it's multi-AZ, and we are trying to achieve highly available thing here too. And about the current trend in modern app development, actually I had a couple of discussions today with some of you about containers, that you are using them, that you have selected them. And I just want to talk about why I think it's a thing now to select the containers even over serverless in some companies. And I think one thing that is not visible too much here is about the knowledge of the people. And in Schlieger, the decision was made mainly because of the previous knowledge of Kubernetes and its possibility to use it multi-cloud or somewhere else on premises or anything like that. And one thing about Kubernetes is definitely scalability and flexibility. So you are able to scale it fairly quickly, run a new application, new version, and that's basically about the scalability. And security wise, yeah, basically this is also connected a little bit to AWS security, because you get something from AWS when you run it there. You have to secure your account, but if you secure it well and secure everything around well, like the containers and the EKS itself and EC2 instances, you can leverage what AWS offers. You don't have to manage it yourself, because a lot of stuff is managed by AWS there. But you can still get something what you already know for Kubernetes. So that's a great way for Schlieger, definitely. And cost efficiency, yeah, because you are able to scale and be a little bit flexible. So for example, in Schlieger, I have seen in the past that they run it something only for like a couple of days even, and then stopped it, and they were like, it was not useful, let's put it somewhere and not use it. So this was a capability of the containers basically. And the consistency across environments, yeah, this is definitely something what Kubernetes brings, or containers, because you are able to run 3 environments together. They will be consistent across the infrastructure. They will be the same. So if you run it in development and you will see some issues, you are able to tell it right away to solve it, and then you will deploy it for production. For example, you should see, and I think you will see, that it's running well. So that's great about containers too. And also, what I hear a lot is that people tend to try to compare EKS with ECS. And I myself, because I have access to our marketing, I see it also on our website that people try to find these exact words like ECS versus EKS. And I think the reason is that basically if you try to decide what to use in AWS for containers, you will definitely see these 2 services as a first thing. And for Schlieger, it was also this way. So they try to decide what to use. Will it be EKS? Will it be ECS? And this is basically connected to, I think, every one of you or any other company. They had some knowledge of Kubernetes, so they wanted to go this way. And we, as a partner, I think we actually tried to discuss with them why and try to point them to the ECS because it's a little bit easier to manage from our side, mainly as a partner of AWS. But it's more native, and sometimes people tend to say, hey, but what if we will decide to use something else? Is it possible to migrate from ECS? And it's possible, but it's different. But if you are not very familiar with containers right now, you just want to containerize your application, I think ECS is the right decision. So that's basically all to say here. And because I'm also responsible for well-architected reviews in our company, and I did quite a bit in the last 2 years, I just want to connect the Schlieger case study with this, because to be honest, AWS Well-Architected Framework was something what I have heard about before, and I have seen somewhere written, hey, our infrastructure is well architected. But what does it mean, and how it's connected to this like real infrastructure? Basically, well-architected framework is something what you will definitely find in documentation, in AWS documentation, but also it's a part of AWS Well-Architected tool. And this thing has 6 pillars and 58 questions. To be honest, when I do the review, I don't think I will go through all of the questions with the customers, and they themselves are not like very happy if I will take their time. So that's where comes my knowledge, what is connected, for example, to using EKS. And I just want to talk about now, what is it like, what you will get, and you will understand what you can do better in AWS. And it's security-wise, performance-wise, and other stuff around. And what does it mean to run the well-architected review even after you will, like, everything will be fine? Usually it's multi-year collaboration. It's not like something you will do right away and it will be fine for next couple of years. You still need to proactively monitor if anything changes in between. So if the company is deploying still a new stuff to their infrastructure, do they need to scale something? For example, AWS quotas are here and they limit something in AWS, so you should know where is the limit of AWS. And definitely adaptation to growth. This is something connected what I already said, but you have to adapt to the company and try to help them with this. And also future-proof it, because nothing is like staying here forever. So you need to also implement, for example, something new, some new service if it's possible, because AWS deploys a new service almost every year. We see AI, for example. This is something what Schlieger also wanted to leverage, but I'm not here today to talk about it. So that's also it. And the pillars itself, I want to take it a little bit more practical than you would see normally. For operational excellence, you will always see that there are questions around monitoring, for example, definitely operational stuff like is your team ready for doing stuff in AWS? Do you have enough certifications? Do you have enough knowledge? And also what I tend to use in this pillar is a question about CI/CD. So are you running multiple environments and is it automatic? And for security, it's about AWS account security, but also the security of the actual application if it's publicly accessible, for example. And what to use for it in AWS. For example, well-architected review mentions somewhere CloudFront and web application firewall. And for reliability, this is something what actually is connected to failovers, and probably all of the pillars are connected a little bit together, so it's connected to performance efficiency, because probably if you use containers, it's more reliable than just deploying it simply like to EC2 or something like this, simple instance. And in performance efficiency, it's mainly about scaling, but it's also about caching. For example, are you able to cache something in your application somewhere between databases and the actual instances or the containers? And this is where performance efficiency comes. And also cost optimization. I actually like hear many times that people don't tend to understand reserving in AWS very well. They don't even understand how it actually works. So is it something what I will buy and then what we'll do with it and everything around? And AWS have multiple pricing models around every service. So you are usually able to reserve some capacity, but how to do it, how it works, and this is cost optimization, but it's connected to a lot of stuff around, so even some decommissioning stuff. And sustainability is kind of a new pillar, and it connects everything together. Because probably if you cost optimize in AWS, you will be more eco-friendly because you are running your infrastructure well and scaled to the minimum, basically, at the point where you need it. And now I want to go through a couple of questions with you. I hope this will not be boring, but basically I have only selected a couple of questions from every pillar, so like one question from every pillar. That is intended to like show you what I focus on well-architected, and we focus on Schlieger too at some point. Because I remember they have created their application, they wanted to deploy it to the AWS, so we decided to deploy it to multiple AWS accounts, and basically together with multiple environments. But what I tend to see from customers that are not running in AWS for a lot of time or for a couple of years, they don't fully automate the solutions, so they don't fully automate the processes around. If developer is deploying a new application, is it optimized to fully automate? So it will be it will be deployed to the right environment without any manual stuff around. So yeah, this question is intended for use like this, and we have another questions around reliability. It's usually, and it was also for Schlieger, about backups. Do you have backups? And one thing that I tend to see, like from my practical stuff, basically people backup, and they have backups in AWS, they have it on S3, they use snapshots in RDS. But I actually had one discussion with one of our customers regarding RDS and the snapshots, and he told me, hey, I have a snapshot, it's fine, I'm able to like simply recover it. And I was like, do you really know how to recover the snapshot, how it works in AWS? And he was like, I'm just like, it's point in time, so I will just use it and it will work. And I was like, no, it's a little bit less easy than you think. And yeah, this is the discussion. So if you do backups, you can also perform the periodic recovery and try it actually how to recover the backups. And that's the question about basically. And this part about security, we could like talk about it a lot. We have a lot of questions in security. But one question that I tend to use, and we used it with Schlieger at the start, is to use strong sign-in mechanism. So sign-in here is meant like meaning to the AWS account. We are not trying to check how the customer is secured in the actual application. So if they have application and they are logging in there, this is not the part of it. This is mainly about the AWS account itself. And also, what I tend to check here, and in Schlieger we checked, it's storing and using secrets securely. So if you have any credentials in your code, for example, and it's on GitHub, which is something what is kind of normal, it's always better to use something in between to save the actual credentials. In AWS, for example, Secrets Manager, and in EKS, you can use external secrets operator. This is used by Schlieger, and it was described to me by my colleague that is actually actually responsible for running it. But also they have like 15 users in the account, in the production account. So we also at the start checked if they are using MFA and how they save the actual passwords. And that's where this question basically comes. And there is a lot of other stuff to solve at the start, at any point, basically. And for performance efficiency, here I want to talk about just one point in the infrastructure. It's databases, because customer at the start wanted to use something. They don't want to use something native in AWS. They just wanted to use something, and we have tried to convince them to use NoSQL database, DynamoDB, because they just need to save some things around the forms about the customers. They want to securely save it, but also be able to scale very fast. Because if marketing, for example, runs some campaign on their website and promote the form, they could go through some troubles if the actual instance of the database will go down or stop working. So that's where they save the data about the customers in the DynamoDB. And as you can see, basically you will need to understand data characteristics definitely and other stuff around, but it's connected practically to what I said. And about cost optimization, this is definitely something what everybody wants to cost optimize the AWS. We only have one thing from the cost optimization here, which is regarding the data transfer charges. And if you are familiar with data transfer charges in AWS, you have probably seen two. One is connected to the actual regional stuff. So if you have some traffic between the AZs in AWS, like you have RDS instance in one AZ and EC2 instance in another AZ, you will probably pay for the transfer between these two services. And I tend to check this always if we do the review and it's not like which leaguer, because which leaguer it was different. We know this stuff, so we have started from the beginning with trying to optimize this. But one thing what I have here is different, is about the data transfer to the public. So if you, for example, run any publicly accessible website or application, you probably want to use CDN, but it's not always the case. Sometimes the people tend to use the services without the CDN. And what I want to share with you here is about CloudFront, because it's an edge service, and it can also, what it brings is caching, definitely, it's CDN. But what it also brings is a cost optimization. And it can cost optimize the costs of running an S3 bucket with videos, for example. If you have saved videos to S3 bucket and share them with the customers, you will pay for the data transfer. And with CloudFront, it can go lower. And CloudFront offers free tier, that's good. But yeah, basically it's cost optimization with the customer. If you use only S3 bucket without CloudFront, you will probably pay a little bit more than with CloudFront. So this is one of the questions of the cost optimization pillar. And for sustainability, as I have said, it's more about connecting everything together. And we put some effort into using the minimum amount of every service in AWS for Schlieger. And they are pretty happy with the solution for a lot of things. But sometimes it's kind of problematic. You still need to use something. You cannot just shut down everything until it's cost optimized. So sometimes it's also good and it's a best practice to start using managed service. Sometimes it can cost a little bit more in AWS bill, but what it can bring is the operational cost savings, basically for the people that would normally start to use any other service and spend more time on managing it than for the managed service from AWS. So that's the point here. But also I think what is the point here, if you use managed service, you will probably have a little bit more time to spend on right-sizing the actual stuff in AWS. So for example, are you using the right type of EC2 instance, or are you using the right type of Fargate? And that's sustainability. And for conclusion, we have talked about the possibility, which is a great possibility for almost everyone, the possibility to choose between Elastic Kubernetes service and Elastic Container Service. As I have said, if you are trying to start with containers and you are not like familiar very much with Kubernetes, just choose ECS. And to be honest, if you use it with Fargate, I think most of you would be probably able to manage it because it's kind of easy. You just click through the console and everything runs managed by AWS. For EKS, it's kind of different. I think it's for bigger projects where you want to run more containers, and also you have already knowledge of Kubernetes, which I think a lot of people do. That's why the AWS selected this way. And if you are running something in AWS right now, you are able to leverage AWS best practices from well-architected framework very well. If you are just starting the project, it's maybe a little bit easier to start because you just need to basically go through the well-architected framework and just check what is there. What I haven't mentioned, basically if you go through the well-architected tool yourself, you are able to not just dig through the questions and say, hey, I am not able to answer you or something, but you will find the actual answer there, like how to do it, because AWS knows the stuff that people tend to try to solve. And that's where the well-architected framework comes. And as I have maybe said, I don't know, it can be used on any workload. So it's not like there is no limitation. If you are running something small, like, for example, one EC2 instance, you can still leverage well-architected framework because as I have described, it's a little bit around it. So if you are deploying something to the EC2, you will probably need some CI/CD processes around and maybe even use multiple environments. And yeah, that's basically it, I think.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Adam, for actually covering this. So you described basically kind of the benefit of architecture view. There's no limitation in terms of the size of the company because it provides you with the framework how you can actually repeat the deployment of different operations. So I hope and believe it was kind of helpful, interesting, so you can actually use this in your future projects. And you would like to discuss a little bit more with us, we have a booth at P2 downstairs, and we're ready to also discuss personally your project with you. Thank you very much, guys, for your attention.